This conference will now be recorded.
All right.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right. That was weird. I hit it by accident. All right, folks. So good afternoon. So today we're going to be looking at chapter 14, sensory systems. So we're going to be talking about special senses and looking at information regarding how we process information that we're going to be receiving through our senses, whether it's our eyes, our ears, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, okay, our sensations throughout the body and our skin, our integument. So we'll be looking at that today. So we're going to be focusing on that. So let's look at the first slide here. And honestly, before I even do that, let me just say this, that quite interesting regarding sensations. When we think of sensations, okay, when we think of sensations, we take them for granted. Honestly, think about this for a moment, right? Everything is good. You're not worrying about how you taste, how you see, how you smell, how you hear. Not a big deal. You just take it for granted. Yet when it comes to a period of time where maybe you suffered with COVID and you ended up having issues with taste, your sense of smell and taste. Many people did. Many people did. And many people still have lingering issues with that. Does anybody know of anybody in particular who might be having issues with that even at present? I have family members, two of them, that are having issues with that. So it's something that, even after the illness, still experiencing that. So that's tough stuff. So today we're going to be looking at and discovering and really reviewing as far as the structures that go on, as far as these, our ability to be able to sense, to be able to smell, to be able to hear, to be able to taste, to be able to see. And we're going to get a little bit more of an understanding regarding how that goes. So I hope this will be interesting for you all. So see the term here, stimulus, right? So a stimulus can be many different things, whether it's something that we actually are having some type of light stimuli, we're having some type of auditory stimuli where there's sound waves going on, or how about something that we're smelling or we're tasting or that we experience on our skin, our integument, right? These are all forms of stimuli that the body will take in, the brain will process, the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord, and then we're going to end up having a response to that as far as the ability for our brains to be able to take that information in and be able to process it so that we're seeing, we're hearing, we're smelling, we're tasting, right? We're feeling, experiencing something walking on our skin. So you'll see here that sensory systems notify the brain and spinal cord, just like I said, specific changes inside and outside of the body. And so this is important, folks, right? So have you ever had a situation where you had a really bad cold, or maybe you had COVID, and you had a situation where, yeah, you weren't smelling all that, you weren't able to smell anything, and this was affecting your sense of taste, right? And I just said before that many people are still having lingering effects from this as far as their sense of smell and sense of taste. That's an easy one because that's one that many of us experience. How about many of us probably, I myself, I wear glasses, right? So many of you wear glasses or contact lenses and such. So you're experiencing situations where there's issues going on with your ability, the photoreceptors and the whole structures of the eye itself to be able to take the light that's being sent from all around you, your whole surroundings, and not bend it correctly within inside of the eye for your photoreceptors to be able to determine what it is that you're seeing and seeing it clearly. So that can be an issue. Interesting here where it says that stimulus energy is converted into action potential. So this information that you're receiving as far as your sensory receptors, it converts it into this bioelectrical activity that's going to cause some type of change, right? And cause some type of action to occur. And that's what we saw as far as with the muscular system, as well as the nervous system, as far as what's going on with these bioelectricity present within the body that's allowing for things to happen, change to take place, muscles to be able to contract. Interesting here, you're seeing that we said something, and the brain response then will be our perception of what that sensation is that we're experiencing. I like this image here. Take a look at this image here. And it's really quite good as far as showing you that, yeah, there's some type of stimulus. The receptors receive this stimulus. In this case, we're looking at photoreceptors, your ability to see, your sense of vision. Neural impulses are being generated and sent to the brain, and in particular, whether it's for your sense of, so you're seeing here not only just visual, but also as far as for your sense of smell, right? Also a sense of taste. And so going to specific areas within the brain that will help you to have that perception of whatever that sensation is that you experience and that you are experiencing. So from sensation, we're receiving some type of sensory input to then actual perception, perceiving what it is that you actually are receiving as far as that information is concerned. And they were showing you as far as a pot of coffee brewing and such. For most people, that's a pleasant experience, but not everybody. Not everybody likes coffee. Here you're seeing as far as what I know that I said this to you early on, as far as that the actual structures of the human body, really how they are as far as their structure, as far as how they're put together, as far as how they look, as far as how they appear, can dictate their function, okay? And actually dictate their function. So look in the back here. So we look at our skeleton per se. You look at our skeleton and you see, all right, hey, this is an ability for an aspect of the body to be able to protect important parts of the body. So it makes your brain, got the skull. In the case of the contents of the thoracic cavity, as far as you have your lungs, you have your heart, you have the thymus gland, you have special large vessels of the heart, and other structures that are protected by this. You'll have here also the spinal cord being protected by the spine itself. That hard structure, right, that is living, right, we talked about living, is able to, as a result of its structures, it's very durable, it's very tough, can protect soft tissue structures of the body, of the human anatomy. So here you're seeing as far as there are going to be different types of receptors present in the nervous system to receive information. So here you're seeing here for A, right? A, sensory receptor consisting of free nerve endings, dendrites of a sensory neuron, right? So they're going to receive information, and then you'll see here that action potential is going to be carried along that neuron. Or how about here, the sense organ B, sensory receptor involving nerve endings of an afferent neuron enclosed in a specialized structure. So you see here it's unique in its appearance, different from what's going on as far as those free nerve endings are concerned. And what we can have here as far as in B, this can be a structure present within the integument, within the skin, in particular in the dermis, that second layer there, that actually can sense pressure, okay? Whether it's light pressure or deep pressure, that can take place as far as B. You'll see here also, as far as for your special senses, they can have these specific types of sensory receptor cells with these little hairs on the top there. So sensory receptor formed by a cell that synapses with a sensory neuron. And this also can allow for a sensation, which will become a perception of some type of sensory activity and sensory response. So here you're seeing in this next slide, as far as there are specific types of receptors present. So in the case of a photoreceptor, right? So photoreceptors are going to be present within the retina of the eye, in the very deep layer of the eye, the inner layer of the eye, the retina. These photoreceptors are going to be present for your sense of color, right? To perceive color, as well as light and dark. And so we would say like a black and white type of a thing, right? As far as that type of vision is night vision and such. So we have specific types of photoreceptors that are called rods and cones, and we'll talk about them in more detail. You'll see here as far as chemoreceptors, well, you'll see here the root as far as heme, CHEM, right? So that's how we then refer to them, the chemical aspect. And so chemicals dissolved in surrounding fluid. So for your sense of smell, for your sense of taste, chemoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors. So these are going to detect changes that take place as a result of movement. And you'll see here pressure, position, or acceleration. These are all part of these kind of specific receptors that will be able to detect this and give your brain input as to what's going on with, say, an area of the body on your extremities, or how about with what's going on with the position of your head, these kinds of things, and also contribute to your sense of balance and equilibrium, right? If you've ever known someone who has had an issue with their sense of balance and equilibrium, are they able to really get around very easily? How about? Yeah, there understood. There are persons who have experienced a tumor in the cerebellum at the base of the brain. Let's look at that. Let's see that here. The cerebellum is right here. So as we're looking at the brain, so we can see the brain right here, and we're looking at those two cerebral hemispheres. Well, if we look at the posterior, the aspect where in the back part, if you were to take your hand and go like this in the back of the skull, that's back and through in here, very deep within as far as called the cerebellum, as well as the inner part of your ear. That's going to help you to have this ability for balance and equilibrium. And so if you have damage there, that can affect your ability to get around. Now, how about if someone is taking too much alcohol, or how about taking drugs? Can that affect and temporarily cause damage and insult to that part of the brain that allows for you to be able to be steady? Absolutely, yeah. And think about this also, if patients have a tumor to that area of the brain, that can also affect what goes on as far as that function. And even temporarily, we can have issues with this. Go ahead. Yeah, it is an inner ear thing indeed. And there is something called BPPV. 9. It's a hard word. It's a challenging one. Paroxysmal. Ismal. I have to look up the spelling. I'm sorry. Benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. Right? And what's going on with BPPV is that there's an issue with the inner ear. There absolutely is. And there are these certain crystals that are present that allow for your brain to know what's going on when your head is moving, when it's tilting, wherever it is. It gives position sense to what's going on with your head. Well, if these little crystals get out of position and they start going in what's called the semicircular canals of the inner ear, and we'll talk about this later today. But if there's an issue with that, these crystals, they get malpositioned and they can send conflicting data to the brain. So when someone has an issue where they have vertigo, they have issues with car sickness, seasickness, motion sickness in general, what's going on is that you have conflicting input. So you'll see one thing, but your body's experiencing something else, and that can get you sick. Has anybody ever been motion sick at all? Yeah, right? Doesn't feel good, does it? It's terrible. Yeah, absolutely is terrible. Have you ever been on a ride, like an amusement park ride, and you got off and you're like, oh, I just ruined like part of my day today because I just saw this stupid thing and I feel like garbage afterwards. It waxed out your inner ear a bit. okay? And so you have to kind of get yourself calm a little bit and kind of reboot a little bit as far as until you can kind of feel a little bit better. But sometimes that can take a couple hours. It's terrible stuff. And also know that this is also their connections to the digestive system and such, and part of the brain there, so that then you're feeling nauseated, right, as a result of this motion sickness. Terrible, terrible stuff. By the way, this word here, so benign. So for this BPPV, benign is that it's not malignant, it's going to kill you, right? It's not going to kill you. You can live with this. Paroxysmal means it deals with, like, you can't, there's no prediction. It just happens very quickly, out of the blue. It occurs. Positional, meaning that your head can be in a certain position and trigger this type of vertigo, this sense of feeling like you're not, stable. I experienced this myself after a minor head trauma, and it was terrible. And there's ways that you can, like, help reposition these crystals and such, but it can be a little bit of a challenge. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But got off on a rabbit trail there. So sorry. All right, let's move on to different types of different types of receptors in addition to what we looked at. So thermoreceptors, this makes sense as far as then for your ability to experience some type of temperature, right? Thermoreceptors are present for that. Nociceptors, these are specifically for pain, okay? And so they'll detect pain, tissue damage and such, which can also elicit pain. Osmoreceptors, dealing with issues with pressure, with changes in water volume, which can affect actual pressure changes and such. And really what happens is that water volume in the body, water needs to be present throughout the whole body. It's in your blood, it's cerebral spinal fluid that covers and protects the brain and the spinal cord. There is also other tissue fluids present, but water, and where water is present throughout your body, these osmoreceptors can help control that. And that can be really a matter of life or death. So sensing here, so you'll see here that sensory adaptation, this is interesting. So diminishing response to an ongoing stimulus. So you may walk into a room, right, and notice a good smell or a bad smell initially, right? It's kind of like it hits you, like and you're kind of like, whoa, either that's good or that's bad, whatever it may be. And after you're in that room for a period of time, you adapt to the whatever that sensation is, whether it's good smells or bad smells. The fact that you're wearing clothes right now, right? You're wearing clothes and you can feel them on the skin when I tell you that you're kind of like that you feel it. But normally, right, you're sitting there right now and you're not like going, wow, my shirt is too this or my pants are too this, unless they're too tight or something along those lines. But generally, that's not the issue. You adapt. So these sensory input, there's a lot of adaptation that can occur, so that you're not overwhelming the brain with, wow, I'm thinking about what's going on as far as what the smells in the room, what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling on my body, on my skin, right? This is all adaptation over a period of time, so that you kind of block it out. How about this? You tell me, have you ever had some type of issue where you have pain in a part of your body, and when you're going to sleep at night, it seems to get worse? Do you notice that? Do you notice that? Anybody, right? I think we all would notice that. If you experience pain and you're going to sleep and all of a sudden, hey, why is it so worse? Well, think about this. You're laying down and a lot of other sensory input is really not going on. So what's happening then? You're just laying down, you're just trying to be calm and go to sleep. And then those nociceptors and those pain receptors are going to fire and let your body know, hey, this is what's going on, because there's not other things going on to get in the way of those pain receptors. Have you ever heard of a TENS unit? Anybody ever heard of a TENS unit? Have you ever heard of like electricity that they'll put on your body, like a physical therapist, a chiropractor? that can help with manage pain and discomfort. For your what? Okay, see? So, yes. Well, it can cause minor, like little stimulations that it can cause the muscle to contract a bit. Yeah, not fully, but like a little bit, indeed. This electrical impulses are trying to block the pain messages from the area of the body that you're experiencing your pain to the brain. And so by doing that electrical activity, it can do that. So they're pretty wild stuff, actually. So you'll see here that, let's see, nerve impulses that travel along sensory neurons are all the same. So the brain assesses nerve type, frequency, and number of axons responding. So your brain is amazing, folks, in what it can do as far as its ability to be able to take all this input in and then determine what needs to happen as far as the response. Here you're looking at, so a stretched muscle. So this is that muscle spindle, this receptor that will actually prevent a muscle from getting damaged. Okay, so these muscle spindles are present within the skeletal muscle. A stretched muscle stimulates a stretch receptor at the ending of a sensory neuron that is adjacent to it. The message travels from the stimulated neuron, sensory neuron, to the motor neuron and the interneuron in the spinal cord. So what happens is that sensory neuron receives, interneuron processes, and then that motor neuron will cause some type of action to occur. So you see here, the message is sent back to the muscle, also to other interneurons in the brain, and causing some type of action to take place. Remember, when we see the term somatic or soma, that deals with the body itself, okay? The body. So receptors for somatic senses, they're near the body surface. That makes sense, whether they're in the integument of the skin, or in the skeletal muscles, or in soft internal organs, or how about the fingertips and the tip of the tongue? Very sensitive in comparison. Have you ever bit your tongue or had something real hot hit your tongue and cause, that can be very painful and such, right? A lot of receptors there. How about a paper cut on your fingertips? That can be really uncomfortable also, without a doubt. Everybody in class, stand up a little bit. Everybody online, stand up a little bit. We're going to stretch. All right, we're just going to move around a little bit, just in place, just so that we don't fall asleep while Dr. Perone is lecturing on special senses. There you go. Awesome. Very good. All right. I need my stretching also. Okay, thank you, folks. Very good. Just to break up the monotony a little bit, it goes on with sitting. So, interesting, you'll see here that signals reach the somatosensory cortex in the cerebrum. Yeah. Okay, where is that? So really, that would be like right in through in here, right in this region right here. And it says there the post-central gyrus. So take a look at this here in the classroom. Go around. So right where I put my fingers, right here, right at the fingertips right there, that's what we're looking at as far as sensory information is going to the brain. On both sides. On both sides. So it's going right through this region right here. And that really is called the parietal lobe. Okay? So that's not the frontal part of the brain. But that's really this other section of the brain called the parietal lobe. So this right here, fold. That fold is brain. Here. That parietal lobe right here. So we've got here, folks, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, and the occipital lobe right in here, right above that cerebellum. So that part of the brain, that post-central gyrus, that fold, receives all of the sensory input. The fold that is in front of it or anterior to it, right where my fingertips are right now, so just right in front of it would be for your ability to be able to control your muscles of your body, your skeletal muscles, the ability to move, to be able to walk, use your arms, use your legs, skeletal muscle. That's right in front of that post-central gyrus. It's called the precentral gyrus. Now you'll see here so that's all that sensory information that's coming to the brain. These three nerve endings, they're very close to the skin surface. And they're going to detect stimuli and perceive as pain or an itch. Have you ever had some type of like a light itch and you're like scratching at it, and right? And not as a result of, I would say, not as a result of like some kind of a rash, but just have like a little bit of an itchy sensation. Yeah, that's as a result of these free nerve endings. And here we're looking at, and you can see on this next image, you're actually seeing here. So right here, right, goes online, and right here, that would be those free nerve endings. And they're very much so, they have that ability to detect these light sensations. So do this. Do you have like a, let's see. You have a piece of paper. Let me give you a couple of these. Give me one moment here. I'm looking for some paper clips. Give me one moment. I want you all to try something. Okay. All right. Have a couple pieces of paper. You can even just use your PowerPoint. Everybody just take one. Just take one, pass them around. Take one, pass them around. Yeah, is I'd like you to take one piece of paper from your PowerPoint, those of you that are here on campus, put the paper clip underneath your paper, and now take your fingertips and try and outline the paper clip with one hand. Try and outline it, find it where it's underneath the paper, and try and feel it with just the one piece of paper. Then what I'd like you to do is do two pieces, and then let's see how many pages are on our, probably have like 4 pages or so, right? 3, 4 pages. Then do 3 or 4 pages and put it underneath, put the paper clip underneath, and try and trace it with your fingertip. So I would tell you that you can, this is as a result of the very sensitive free nerve endings present on the fingertips there, that you're able to feel multiple layers. You can still feel the paper clip and such. And if you were to practice this, you could probably feel it under very many pieces of paper over time, right? But just an example, just help you to get an idea as far as what's going on with these nerve receptors, these nerve endings, very close together on the fingertips. Very important for you to be able to sense certain types of things as far as for your sense of touch, and really to help you with your life and daily life as far as different activities that you may do. You'll see here that there are on this image here for your PowerPoint, these Meissner corpuscles, Merkel discs, Ruffini endings, Pacinian corpuscles. They're present at different levels in the dermis of the skin, the second layer, and they have different functions. You'll see here as far as for light touch, as far as for steady touch, as far as for pressure and touch, as far as for deep pressure, vibrations. You'll notice also that on the hair follicle, see the deep part of the hair, there's nerve endings present, these hair follicle receptors. And do this for me, folks. So have your arm out. Now, some of you might have not hardly any, but a little, whatever. But take your hand, your other hand, and don't touch the skin of your forearm, but just kind of go above it. And you can feel, even as you just go above it and move some of the hairs that are present, right? You can still, even just the pressure or just the sensation, you can feel that as a result of those hair follicle receptors. All right. Now, the next topic we're going to be looking at is called referred pain. Referred pain. So this is a sensation, folks, that we can experience. One area of the body is having a problem, and another area of the body is actually experiencing this pain and discomfort. Okay? So this is kind of a weird thing. Have you ever, you have all heard of people who have experienced some type of a heart attack, right? They experience a heart attack, and what goes on? They have jaw pain on the left side, they'll have shoulder and arm pain, and this side of the chest will be, right? So it's not only just the area where the heart is, but in areas surrounding, right? So you'll see here that pain projects a sensation from an internal organ to an area of the skin. How about the gallbladder? The gallbladder is here, so the liver is right here on the right side, and deep underneath there's the gallbladder. We'll talk about that later on. But the gallbladder can have issues, and if that has pain, it can refer to the right shoulder. So an internal organ sending sensations to another area of the body, and this is as a result of the development that took place as far as when you were a fetus and just developing as very little. These nerves can be stretched from the areas where they originated. You'll see here pain is felt in one area of the body that is different from its source. Referred pain, and this will give you this next image here, anterior and posterior, front and back. You'll see how there can be areas that can also, where you're experiencing pain as a result of another area of the body having an issue. All right, so let's look at your sense of taste and your sense of smell. So gustation, sense of taste, right? Sense of taste, and you have taste buds that are actually going to then receive, that are going to be these taste receptors that are going to be carried along cranial nerves, nerves coming directly off of your brain. So the nerve that comes directly off of your brain is called a cranial nerve, right? The nerves for your sense of taste are cranial nerve number 7, 9, and 10. So we use Roman numerals for these cranial nerves, these nerves that come directly off of your brain. So we have here facial nerve, vagus nerve, and this would be then the glossopharyngeal. Right? Hold on. Oh crap. Old Olympus. Yeah, glossopharyngeal. And that cranial nerve 7 is going to the face. Cranial nerve number 9 is going to the tongue and to the throat. And cranial nerve number 10 is going throughout the whole abdominal pelvic areas. So these nerves right here for your sense of taste. So these taste buds are pretty interesting. Here we go. We'll look at them in just one moment. But these taste buds are the receptors that you experience, the food that you're taking in, and the taste that you experience. You're sensing and then you're perceiving as a result of areas of the brain receiving this input from these taste receptors, these taste buds. 10,000 taste buds, that's pretty remarkable. That's pretty amazing. Your sense of taste, folks, we have sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and something called umami. So sweet, we understand. Salty, we understand. Sour, we understand. Bitter, we understand. But umami, what is that? So think of it more along the lines of something like soy sauce, or like a juicy steak or a juicy tomato. This brothiness to it. It's kind of a different sensation, and it's more of like in Japanese cooking and such, and Asian cooking, such as umami. Right. So these are the basic senses of taste. Now understand that our taste, we have combinations of flavors that go on and that we're able to experience, but the basics, that's the basics there. Now you'll see here, olfactory element is important because your ability to be able to smell, that's a part of taste. And understand this, that taste isn't just a matter of, oh, I have a sense of saltiness and that's it. No. How about, so shrimp, lobster, steak, a vegetable, a fruit, do they all have different types of texture to them? They do. And depending upon the fruit, depending upon the vegetable, depending upon the meat, right? These all can have weird kinds of, excuse me one moment. Sorry. They're very persistent. Yeah, from Star Trek. From Star Trek, yeah. Yep, I'm a big Star Trek fan. Like the old, yes, William Shatner, the old ones. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're great. So your sense of taste, right? So texture is a part of it. How about if something is hot or cold? Can that also affect how you're tasting something? Absolutely. And so there's a lot to taste as well as smell. So these are all a part of your ability to taste and to experience, you know, cooking and food in general. So you'll see here olfaction, the sense of smell. Okay. And so know that for olfaction, cranial nerve number 1, the olfactory nerve. That's for your sense of smell, the olfactory nerve, cranial nerve number 1. And you have these receptors. Now, here's something interesting for you all. Prior to COVID, you probably had no idea how deep your nasal cavity would go. But when someone had to jam a, right, take that swab and put it up into and you're like, whoa, you're hitting my brain, right? Well, honestly, like, so know this, that there's the receptors for your sense of smell, and there's protection as far as the skull, so that you're not actually touching the brain, but it's right on the other side of some bone structures there, absolutely. So it's pretty remarkable. So those receptors are present deep within the nasal cavity and right at the very top part. And you'll see here that they detect substances dissolve in mucus. Here's the thing, with your sense of taste, with the taste buds, what's being dissolved in what? Well, these different parts of food are being dissolved in saliva. So it's got to be some type of liquid. So it can't just be something dry, right? If it's all dry within your mouth, then more than likely, then there's damage to tissue. Cells are dying. Remember, cells need to have moisture in order to be alive. So they need to be dissolved in some type of saliva. There's a little bit of mucus in your oral cavity. And then as far as in the nasal cavity, you'll see here, for you to be able to smell things, yeah, there has to be some type of liquid, so the mucus will be allowing you to do that. And know that really, like when you're smelling something, the particulate matter that you're smelling, right? So whether it's good things or bad things, and you can use your imagination for that, they're particles of whatever it is that's in the air. That's how you're smelling. That's how you're perceiving. That's how you're sensing that smell that you're experiencing and perceiving. So let's look at here as far as the tongue is concerned. Now, when we're looking at the tongue here are, when you talk about your tonsils, you're looking at these structures right there. When you open up your mouth and you push down your tongue, that's what you're looking at as far as these tonsils in through here. But there's also some, this is called a tonsil. This is the lingual tonsil. It's at the very base of your tongue. So that's also that special type of immune type of tissue. Then you're going to see here that, and don't look at and say, oh, this is not accurate any longer. That all throughout your tongue, you can sense all these different types of sensations as far as tastes are concerned. So it's not in specific regions. Okay? But know that, yeah, throughout the tongue, you can experience all of these as far as the bitter, sour, salty, sweet, and umami. Right? Now, you'll see here that the tongue, honestly, when you look at the tongue, it's kind of rough. It's not smooth. It shouldn't be smooth. It should be, there's a little bit of a roughness to it. And that's as a result of certain type of these papillae present that make the tongue so it's not super smooth. So how about this? This is like one way that I could think of it. When I was a kid, my uncle used to always have these hard candies, like these like sour balls and such, right? So they're like a bowl of hard candy, and you put it in your mouth and you can suck on it. It's good stuff, right? But sometimes what would happen, they were smooth. And if you put it in your mouth, and all of a sudden you're like, and it went right into your throat, and you're like, ah! And thank God you didn't choke. But they're small, but they were smooth. They went right in, right into your throat. That's not a good thing, right? For food in general, food needs to stay in your oral cavity in your mouth for a period of time to be able to be what? To be compressed, chewed. That's right, and mixed with different enzymes and saliva in order for it to be broken down and then sent down to be swallowed and sent into your digestive system. So the tongue is going to be rough with certain types of these little papillae that don't have taste buds. But then there are these certain types of taste buds, and they're going to look like little, spongiform. They're going to look like little mushrooms and such, and have a unique appearance. And you're going to see that they have these little receptors present within these sensory nerves and within these taste buds that will allow for you to, again, mixing with some type of liquid, like the saliva, the mucus present within your mouth, your oral cavity, and then be able to then send to the brain in order to then experience that sensation of taste. All right. Now, each taste category associated with the particular tastant molecule. So each taste bud can respond to tastants in at least two of the categories. So interesting, right? So it's not just specific for one thing. Know this, your sense of taste for bitterness, right? It's a very low threshold. In other words, you don't need to have much of it in your mouth for you to perceive bitter. Now, what's something bitter that you can think of? Well, coffee can be, if it's left out over a period of time, that can have a bitter taste. But in nature, things that taste bitter are usually poisons within nature. And so that's a safety mechanism for the body, that we can perceive these bitter flavors, these bitter tastes very easily. So we don't need to have much of it. We go, oh, spit that out. That's not good, right? So bitter is an important one. That's why it says here, most sensitive. Now, you'll see here that perceived taste depends on the nature of the triggering chemical. And so that's quite interesting. As far as I said, the bitter has a very low level that you can experience it and can protect you. So the sensitivities. All right, folks, so we're going to take a couple of minute break. We're going to take like a 10-minute break and come back and look at our sense of hearing. I'm going to press stop on the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks, so we're back at looking at our senses and looking at, in particular, our sense of hearing. I'm going to minimize this for a moment. And okay, let's see. Bear with me one moment here. Okay. I know I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm only going to put up who's talking. Okay? And what you're going to see then is you're going to see okay. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to put this on full screen. Let's just make sure that this is loud enough. I have two short videos to show you all. So folks, take a look at this. I'm going to turn off the lights here.
Many of us take for granted a very extraordinary organ, our ears. To understand the ear, we need to understand what sound is. The speakers you are listening to right now are vibrating, flexing in and out, causing a wave of pressure through the air. The frequency of these waves, or the speed at which the sound creating surface moves back and forth, affects the pitch of the sound. The level of air pressure in each wave is directly related to how loud the sound is. The outer part of our ear catches these waves. It faces forward and has a specially designed structure of curves, helping us to determine the direction of the sound and also emphasize the frequencies used in human speech. Now that the sound waves are caught, they travel through the ear canal and strike against our eardrum, a thin membrane about 10 millimeters wide. Now that we receive the sound, the middle ear transfers this energy. The smallest bones in your body, the malleus, incus, and stapes, start in motion. The malleus is attached to the eardrum, and as the sound travels along, the force is amplified by leverage until it arrives at the stapes, which acts like a reversed piston, creating waves in the fluid of the inner ear. The most significant increase in pressure is caused by pneumatic amplification. The face of the stapes has a surface area of about 3.2 square millimeters, while the eardrum has a surface area of 55 square millimeters. Using this, along with leverage through the malleus and incus, the final pressure is 22 times greater than when the sound first arrived. Now we come to the most complicated part of the hearing, the cochlea. In reality, it is coiled up, but it is easier to understand straightened out. There are actually 3 chambers inside, but let's take a look at the central part. The stapes is causing pressure waves to travel through the structure. Along the inside wall is about 20 to 30,000 reed-like fibers. As the waves move along, they encounter fibers with the correct resonant frequency and energy is released. These fibers aren't actually what give us the signal that we heard something. There is a special structure next to these fibers containing hair cells. When the fibers resonate, they cause the hair cells to move, which then sends an electrical impulse to the cochlear nerve and onto the brain. Certain pitches of sound will resonate in specific locations, and louder sounds will cause more hair cells to move. Our brain interprets all this raw data, making it possible to enjoy things like music or an engaging conversation. Just to think that all of this is happening in your head right now at full speed. This is just one of the amazing systems found in the human body that go far beyond our humble human understanding.
Okay, we're going to play one more video for you all. And this is going to be a video that is showing you a cartoon, and it's showing you what it feels like to be have your sense of hearing impaired, to be hearing impaired. Okay, so listen to this. It's only short. It's a minute. We'll watch it twice. Okay. So pay attention to this. Again, I'm going to play it for you twice. It's only a minute long, but it's interesting to hear as far as the difference between the different, what we would say different issues with the human body. We would say mild, moderate, or severe as far as the deficit. Okay, and here you're having also profound, where it's pretty much the patient's not really hearing much of anything.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're on my Avenue. You owe me $300. You add it up.
Fred, take it easy. It's only a game.
Well, just like them big tycoons, I play to win. I've already paid up on you out of the game.
Now, what you saw there, and I'm going to play it again, just so that you get an idea regarding, is that not only is it just the volume is diminished, is decreased, and it's hard to hear, but it's also the clarity, how clear sound waves sound, how voice, how sounds can sound. It's not very clear, it's very muffled. So watch it again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're on my apartment building. I'm proud of that. You owe me $300. You add it up.
Fred, take it easy. It's only a game.
Well, just like them big tycoons, I play to win. I've already paid up on you out of the game.
And it's a severe level. It's hard to hear, hard to see here any clarity to the speech. Yeah, it's really tough. Does anyone here in class know someone who has hearing impairment? Right? I've had and taken care of. Oh. That's some pretty cool stuff too. We can do some things next in the lab. All right, so there we have. Let me go back here as far as sharing my screen with you all as far as the PowerPoint is concerned. Right. So in this inner portion here, there's liquid present. There's liquid present, and that's what's being pushed on by those little tiny bones that allows for you to stimulate these sensory receptors in here. And know this, right? So high pitch sounds primarily here. Low pitch sounds more further away in this region of that. So it looks kind of like this. It looks like a shell. So the cochlea, right, looks like a shell, okay? And so that's the area where we have our sense of hearing. Let's go back up here for a moment, and I want to show you in the PowerPoint. So you have here, what are the structures? So you'll see here that external ear, middle, and inner, and the different structures that are present in each, and then how we end up having the external ear sound waves are coming in, sound energy. Mechanical energy as far as hitting that tympanic membrane, that eardrum, and causing those bones to move, right? Which in turn will then affect what's going on in the inner ear and help to stimulate those certain sensory receptors that will create electrochemical energy and then go to the temporal portion of your brain, which will help you to process sound. Don't worry about this next image, but just so that you can just see. So you'll see here as far as amplitude, remember amplitude, we talked about that was like whether you're hearing something loud or soft. So you can see the larger the amplitude, the louder you're going to hear as far as those sound waves. The smaller the amplitude, the softer. And you'll see therefore, as far as the closer together those waves are, that's going to give you then more of a higher pitch, or further apart, it's going to give you that low pitch that you're experiencing as far as your sense of hearing. So here you're looking at, as far as, again, they're just showing you that middle ear. So when you hear someone say, like your doctor says, oh, you know, your brother, your sister, or you are experiencing otitis media. Have you ever heard of that before? It's a middle ear infection. That's a very common thing for a young person to experience. A middle ear infection, that's where those bones are located, those tiny bones that are moving. Now you'll see here that, look at this folks, right here. See this tube? See that tube? This tube right here, that tube, is called your eustachian tube or the auditory tube. When you are in a plane and you're going higher up in elevation, what happens to your ears? Do they pop? They pop, right? They get that noise. Or how about if you're driving in a car and you go up a mountain, right? Go higher elevation. Don't they pop, or they want to, right? That's as a result of this tube right here opening up and equalizing the pressure in that middle ear. See this area here, right here? So it's pressurized, okay? So this area where your ossicles, those little tiny bones, it's pressurized. And the pressure, right, is alleviated by the opening of that eustachian tube, that auditory tube right there. You're just seeing it at a closer, on this image here, you're seeing that little stirrup that covers that oval window right here. If I were to remove that piece of bone, there would actually be this area there where it's covering that, it's going to be pushing on a liquid, stimulating the sensations that you experience as far as with your sense of hearing. Folks, honestly, it's pretty weird, right? Honestly, it's kind of like, how has this happened? Your cranial nerve for your sense of hearing, is cranial nerve number 8. Please write this down. Cranial nerve number 8 is the auditory nerve. There's also a more complicated nerve name for it called the vestibulocochlear nerve. I'm not going to ask that you give me that, but you need to know the auditory nerve. Cranial nerve number 8 for your sense of hearing, as well as balance and equilibrium. So you'll see here on this next slide, it talks about sense of balance, your equilibrium, state of balance. And so there are structures present. Let's go back here for a moment. Structures present right here, these semicircular canals, and this region right here, which would be called the vestibular region, okay? So look over here, folks, for a moment. So this area right here, your semicircular canals, and this area right here, right in here, called your vestibular region, those are responsible for your sense of balance and equilibrium in conjunction with that cerebellum. So this part of your brain, this part of your brain right here where my hand is, that part's the cerebellum. So when you drink alcohol, like I said, and you drink too much, what gets affected? The cerebellum. And then you start to, you're not as stable on your feet, right? And that's as a result of ear causing some type of temporary damage to the cerebellum. But it works in conjunction with this inner ear. So the inner ear deals with your sense of balance and equilibrium and your sense of hearing. This otolith organs, that's what I was talking about earlier there as far as, look at this next slide. For that BPB, right? That area where you have, see those semicircular canals? See these canals right here? They're at different angles, and fluid is present in these. And at the base here of each of these, there are going to be these sensory receptors that have these little crystals, and if they get knocked out of position, they can start flowing in those canals, and that can be a bad thing, and that can make you feel this nausea, this dizziness, this vertigo. Here we go. This next slide here just shows you a better image. Just to see that, you see those little otoliths, those little crystals? They're on that blue structure, which is like a jelly, and it kind of holds it all together. And what happens is it provides a weight. So when you tilt your head forward, back, sideways, this is going to then send information to your brain that, hey, your head is tilted to the right. It's just giving information to the brain to know exactly where all parts of the body are, including what's going on with your head position. So here we have this next slide. You're seeing here otitis media. So that's a middle ear infection. So where those little bones are, that's a middle ear infection, otitis media. Tinnitus. Has anybody ever experienced ringing in your ears at all? Maybe like if you've had some kind of issue go on. Do you have it all the time?
No, it's when I put them on.
Okay, yeah. Can be as a result of maybe loud noises can cause it. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So afterwards, yeah, like you heard that and you felt that for a period of time. Yeah, it's not a fun feeling. I've gotten that happen too, and it's not a good feeling actually. So ringing in the ear, but there are patients who experience ringing in the ear all the time, and sometimes it's a little bit better and worse, but yeah, they have it constant. It's terrible. Not a serious health threat, but can it make people just like continual pain, chronic pain, can it make them very uncomfortable and not happy? Absolutely. Deafness. So there are different levels of hearing impairment, partial or complete inability to hear. And those cochlear implants are amazing because they actually connect directly deep within the brain, and they're able to, with the hearing apparatus, help patients to hear for the first time, hear sound waves where they know they hadn't since birth. So on Thursday there, we'll look at we'll watch a short video regarding that. So here you need to put photoreceptors, system of photoreceptors and brain centers, please. I forgot to change it. So a system of photoreceptors and brain centers. So those photoreceptors are receiving light input, and light bouncing off of all that is that we see. Okay, this is how we see, and this is how our brain is able to then, at the very base of your brain, the occipital lobe, process this information and give you the ability to see. You'll see here that the eye has multiple layers. An outer layer is our tunic, or middle layer, or an inner layer. Here we say, remember earlier today I told you that the retina is that inner layer, and it has these photoreceptors. They have rods and cones, they're called. Cones are for color vision, your sharp vision, Your rods are vision in dim light, night vision, and your peripheral vision. So rods and cones are your photoreceptors. Rods and cones, photoreceptors. So you'll see here as far as the outer, middle, and inner layer, that outer layer, the white of your eye is called the sclera. The white of your eye, sclera. The cornea is the clear portion over your iris, the colored, the pigmented portion of your eye. So you have blue eyes, brown eyes, that's the retina. That is covered by the cornea. It's a clear layer. So the sclera of the cornea are the outer. The middle layer has a lot of blood vessels, and then the inner layer has the retina and the photoreceptors. It has a lot of nervous tissue present, nervous system structures. So let's take a look at this next image here. And you'll see that. You'll see the different layers. That sclera, the cornea. You'll see the choroid, and then that inner part, that retina. Also, what you're seeing here, the hole, that hole is called your pupil. Your pupil is created by the iris, the pigmented portion. See how this person has like kind of greenish colored eyes, right? So that retina can control small or large pupil. If you're under a lot of stress, if you're trying to fight, you're trying to run from something, your pupils are going to be dilated. If you're doing different types of drugs, there's going to be issues with your pupils, right? If you have brain damage, there's going to be issues with your pupils. So very important how that structure, if it's open big, the pupils are big, you're going to have a lot more light coming in. So you'll be able to see better. Does that make sense? Go ahead. Yeah, because it's affecting your brain. And as a result, that's affecting what goes on as far as the control of that. Yeah, the mechanism, I'm sorry, I don't know the mechanism. Yeah, I don't know the mechanism. I can tell you this, though, that like sympathetic stimulation. So like the fight or flight mechanism, you know, you hear a gunshot and you're ready to like look for where to hide or to run. That's sympathetic stimulation. You're going for a job interview and you're stressed out, sympathetic stimulation, okay? Your heart rate is up, your respiratory rate is up, you're kind of sweaty, your mouth is dry, and your pupils are dilated, okay? Sympathetic. So it has to then stimulate the sympathetic response of the nervous system. Parasympathetic, you're just kind of chilling out, everybody's just relaxing right now, not a big deal. No threat whatsoever. Parasympathetic, we're calm. Your pupils will be really like more narrow, okay? They're not going to be as wide. Now, here's the thing. Again, too, know this, that the pupils of the students on this side of the room are going to be bigger at present than this side, because you guys are in the light. You guys are in kind of like a little bit of dark over here. Does that make sense? So pupillary response to light also that's a fact. The optic nerve. See the structure right there? So optic nerve is cranial nerve number 2. So for your sense of vision, cranial nerve number 2, the optic nerve. For vision. Yep, your ability to see. Now, understand this, that for you to be able to see, your photoreceptors are receiving light bouncing off of all the structures within the room. Your fellow students, all the different parts of the room here, and it's being brought into the eye through the pupil and into the structures present within the inner portion of the eye. Okay? And so what can happen is that, depending upon if a structure is close to you or far away, your lens will change shape. So let's look back here at this image for a moment. Take a look at this image for a moment again. Oh, this one. And this structure right here is right behind the iris, is called the lens. And there are little ligaments and muscles connected to the lens. And the lens will either be stretched or crunched a little bit. So it'll change shape. When it changes shape, this is as a result of what's going on as far as whether you see something close, God bless you, or farther away. Okay? So your eye will adjust accordingly. So everybody here in the room, do this for me, okay? And you can do this at home. So let's look at the back room. Look at the back room. Focus on something in the back room. Just focus, pick something that you're looking at in the back room. So you at home, focus on something that's kind of far away from you in the room that you're in. Now, before you do this, think about something that you could put, like you'll take your hand. That's pretty easy. Take your hand and look at like a fingernail. So now stop what you're doing and now look at a fingernail. Look at a fingernail. Right? You're focusing on that. Then go back to the object that you were looking at farther away. Do you see how there's like a little bit of a lag time there? Like it's not crystal clear, but know this, folks, when you're focusing on something, the lens is going to change shape. And also realize that there's going to be issues that can go on that can affect your body's ability within your eye to be able to focus properly, okay? So for myself, right? So many times I'm not even wearing my glasses because when I'm up close like this and I'm at the computer, I can see perfectly fine. They would say that I'm nearsighted or myopic. You've heard of that, nearsightedness. How about if I can see far, but I can't see near, then I'm farsighted, okay? So these are some different pathologies here. So let's take a look here. And we're going to see also a term called astigmatism. So you'll have here, in normal vision, the light that's going to be coming into the eye is going to go right onto the retina. And in particular to a specific area of the retina that has a high concentration of cones. High concentration of cones. And this would be the fovea and of the macula. Fovea, macula. So if you look over here, folks, so in the area where the macula is located, the fovea is like the bullseye of the target. So the macula would be the target. The fovea would be the bullseye of the target, okay? And that's really where the light for your eye wants to focus it on, wants to bend the light to in order to be able to see things nice and clear, okay? Your sharp vision, because the fovea has the highest concentration of those cones, okay? And those cones are for your sense of color vision as well as your sharp vision, okay? So really important, you'll see here that someone who has a myopic eye or a hyperopia or farsightedness, their eyeballs are going to be a little different. And so you see there, the person with myopia has too long of an eye. The purpose with the person with farsightedness or hyperopia, they have an eyeball that's too short. Because do you see where the focus is taking place? Further, past. Here, it's in front of. So in the normal eye, it's right on the fovea of the macula. as far as for your sense of focus, of sharp vision. So here's the deal. It's kind of weird, right? So how this is doing this as far as you're focusing directly on that one area, yet, folks, do me a favor, cover one eye, cover your right eye, cover your right eye. Now, look straight ahead, but can you see on the right side? Even though you're using your left eye, you can still see on your right side, and you can still see on the far left part of your vision. That's peripheral vision. That's primarily the rods that are working, okay? And that light is stimulating those areas also, in addition to the cones of the fovea. Lastly, we have here astigmatism. Now, astigmatism primarily is a matter of that your cornea is misshapen. So if the cornea should be like this, it might be more like that, the cornea. And this would be astigmatism. The cornea is misshapen. So here's healthy, and here would be misshapen, astigmatism. It can be as a result of an issue with the lens being misshapen, but primarily it's the cornea that's the issue. And so you're going to have issues with focusing. Here you're just seeing as far as that, not only when you're receiving information, right? You're focusing on the information, whatever it may be. It's going to be inverted. See how it's upside down? There are liquids present within the eye. There's a gel present in the back posterior portion of the eye, and there's a liquid present in the anterior, the front portion of the eye. So there's going to be a gel in here and a liquid here. We call that, in the anterior portion, aqueous humor. In the posterior portion, vitreous humor. Or we could say in the front of the eye, aqueous humor. Write this down. So the vitreous humor would be more of like a jelly, like a gelatinous, a jelly type. That's in the back here. But as a result of that image entering into the eye and through these fluids, it's going to invert the image. Then your brain will turn it back up correct position. And that's how you're seeing things that are upright like they are and not in any kind of weird way. Have you ever done that, by the way? Taken a light or a laser into the water and just see? How about this? Have you ever tried to catch a fish or grab something in the water and you're going for it and it's not right in the direct spot that you're putting your arm in? It's because of that your vision is a little skewed as a result of the water bending the light in a little bit of a different way. Here you're looking at this next slide as far as changes in the lens. So here's the lens. Here's the lens. The fibers are taut. It's stretched. And that's going to be for distance vision. Oh. Close vision, the lens is going to be contracted. See how it's kind of compressed a bit, the lens? Lens is compressed. Close vision. Lens is stretched. Far vision. And you'll see that blue. See this blue area here? That's where that liquid is present. So that liquid, that aqueous humor is present in there. Give me one moment here. I'm just going to review and see. Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, we're going to do 2 slides and then we're done for the day. Or 3 slides. 3 slides and we're done for the day. you see here that those photoreceptors and also the brain working in conjunction, this gives you your ability to see, okay? Receives and interprets these signals. There's different types of, like we talked about, the different types of photoreceptors, for cones and for rods, and you'll see here the layers of the eye. These all work in conjunction in order for you to be able to see, right? We get that. Now, you'll see here that, so the retina is what's receiving this information. The photoreceptors receive this information, and then they will take this information and send it to the brain via the optic nerve. Now look at this right here. This is pretty cool. This is the last slide for today. And we'll go over a little bit of pathology and lab, and then go from there. But you'll see here that there are different types of structures. Oh. Rods and cones. You'll see them present on the images that I've given you all as far as the reference on the board. And know that you'll see here that there's this, look at this yellow arrow. Yellow arrow represents light entering into the eye, going into the retina. And then what's going to happen is that these photoreceptors will then send information in this direction, which will in turn go to the optic nerve. So light is traveling here, hits these photoreceptors, and then they will in turn send information, electrical impulses here, till then we'll go to the optic nerve. And this will help us to have our sense of vision and see what we do see, which is really quite amazing. So we'll finish up this chapter next week. I mean, not next week, this Thursday in lab.